title of the talk is Ending the Chain of Blame Through End-to-End Testing with Distributed Tracing. We have Oscar and Ken with me. Ken is the founder of Tracetest, and Oscar is a developer. He has also contributed to the front end of the OpenTelemetry demo. So if you were earlier in the talk of Giuliano, you have seen some of his work for the community. And that's also a session that's very special to us at TIE, because to test our own OpenTelemetry implementation, we're using Tracetest. And we really love this tool, and we really love the idea behind that and what it can do. And we think there's a lot of potential as well for API testing based on OpenTelemetry. So Ken, Oscar, the stage is all yours. The question will come at the end, so don't hesitate to comment, to ask questions, and I will take them towards the end of the talk. Here you go.
Very good, thank you. Today, it's going to be a little bit of live theater. And the title of the presentation is Ending the Chain of Blame, True End-to-End Testing with Distributed Tracing. And so just a minute overview. Typically observability's mainly been used in prod, by the SREs, by DevOps, reactively as you have a problem, helping you troubleshoot the problem and get to the solution. With Tracetest, we propose that you should also be using it proactively in your tests to make your tests better. So today we're going to show you how to leverage observability in your tests. We're going to use Playwright, OpenTelemetry, Jaeger, Tyke, and Node.js. And this it's a sample app. And in that sample app, we're going to provide you with a repo for it. So you'll have the full working system you can run locally in Docker and play around afterwards. And I do not normally wear a suit, and a tie is verboten. I'm doing it because we are doing a skit today. So we're going to enter our roles. I'm Ken Hamric, founder, but in this persona, I will be the manager.
And hello, everyone. My name is Oscar Reyes, and today I'll be known as the dev.
The dev.
The dev.
Very good. Act 1. The system. So we've got this system we built, and it helps us to manage Pokemons, which is very, very important. Most of it is the result of my vision. Oscar helped a little bit, but most of it was done by me. I named it the PokeShop microservice application. I'm not sure what microservice really means, but I shortened it to PMA because I'm really good as a manager. I'm great at making acronyms. So it is the PMA, and you'll hear us say PMA all the time. So, we should look technically at how this thing works. And then, I could go through all the detail and explain it, because all of this stuff, I've kind of got it all right here. But let's go ahead and let Oscar do it to give him some practice. And he is the lead dev. So go ahead, Oscar.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you for letting me be part of this. So today we're going to be looking at the PokeShop demo, which is a Node.js distributed service. And in the front end, we have a React application or React front end. In the backend, we're using Tyke Gateway to proxy the backend services. Then we have a backend process that includes 2 steps, which is the APIs and a worker, a really important worker, which does is that it fetches the information of the Pokemon from the Poke API, that is a third-party service. Then it stores the information into Redis and Postgres. And the really nice thing is that everything is instrumented, everything is added with telemetry, and all of the telemetry from the front end, the Tyke Gateway, and the backend services goes straight to the hotel collector to then be stored into Jaeger. So we can see everything that is happening using Jaeger. And in the right side, we have an example of the trace and for this backend process and how it looks like. So we can see all of the fancy stuff over there.
Oscar, just one question before we move on. When I was writing code, and I wrote a lot of code, we always wrote as a monolith, and we had APIs. But why do we need that worker process again? I don't remember.
Well, again, it was your idea. That's why it's called microservice, right? So we have a worker process that is really important, is running on the backend, and we have Dockerized things. So that's kind of the key point of the whole process in this case.
Okay, I don't get it, but if you say it's okay, I'll trust you. So we'll move along.
Sure.
Act 2, managers should not code. Truer words have never been spoken. Oh, I just got this email from my big boss. I've got to submit a plan for reducing cloud costs by 20% by next week. We reduced them 15% a month ago. I don't know how we're going to find that 20%. Oh, this management stuff, I liked it when I used to code. Maybe I should go back and look at some code for a minute and just blow this off for a few minutes. Let's go look at the repo. Oh, this Docker Compose thing, it kind of reminds me of Makefiles back when I used to hand code C. Let's look through it. What's all this version stuff? Let's see. There's a section, worker section. What is that? The worker thing, I don't get it. Let's take a look at it. It looks like it has its own container. I wonder if that drives my cloud costs. I bet you if we had less containers, we'd have less cloud costs, and I might be able to save that 20%. Let's comment it out. It'll go through our CI/CD process, and Oscar says we have good tests. So if there's a problem, I'm sure they'll catch it. Good to do some coding. I had to scramble to figure out to try to // for the comment. It didn't work for YAML for some reason, but it looks like # working. All right, let me submit a PR. I've also got to change some docs and some README. So I'll make a PR and I'll just put all this stuff into it. And I've got pretty clear documentation. I'm updating the README and docs, and there's one or two other little things in there. Let's see if Oscar approves it. Act 3, what the hell happened? Julianne's reached out to me. She's head of support and is on the customer facing side of things. Yeah, I'm here. Oh, she has a big problem. Yep. What's going on? Oh, she says something's going on with the PMA. Users can no longer insert Pokemons into the system. She's in crisis mode, so I guess I've got to be in crisis mode too. This is probably one of those things those damn devs did. Yeah, they break things pretty often, and I usually have to bail them out. Well, let me get Oscar on this. I've got golf scheduled this afternoon, and this could really mess that up. I guess I could practice my putting while he's trying to figure it out. Hey, Oscar, I'm gonna need your help on this one.
Sure thing. Again, you mind let me drive and
I guess I'll let you drive if I can figure out how. A lot of buttons on this computer.
Okay, so we got a problem. Let's try to remember to breathe and not panic. Even if we're a little bit panicking, let's stay calm. Okay, so this is fine, right? I can do this. So I know that we have tests. So why don't we start with that? I remember that we had some Playwright tests. So okay, I can open the UI and start just validating that the import Pokemon is working correctly. So this is just goes through the UI and opens the model and then tries to import a random Pokemon. And seems to be working. I mean, I don't see anything weird going on, and there's no errors in the console log or anything that tells me that there is something in the front end. I'm pretty sure this.
Hey, Oscar. Sorry to interrupt. Have you got it fixed yet?
Sorry, not yet, okay. Ken. Sorry, okay. I'm going to try to target to the backend guys to see what they say.
Okay, I'll leave you alone for a minute.
Yeah, thank you. So now there must be something in the backend, right? Those guys are always changing things and moving things, and they don't even tell me or tell the front end. They just return these errors, or they just silently fail, and there's something we can do or we can see. Yeah, I'll probably just start a ticket sending it to them. So now I can go early back home and just leave them with all of the work so they can fix it later today. But actually, wait a second. I remember that we have instrumented all of the services, including the front end. I even remember creating a PR for that. So maybe there's another way, maybe something I can do before starting kind of just pushing the blame to them. Let's go to Jaeger and find out what could it be. So, okay, I'm looking at a trace. I'm from the Jaeger UI. And this trace looks healthy. This is something that before the problem, right? Before that release. Since I can see the HTTP post, I can see all of the span generated by our gateway, and I see the worker process. So everything should be working correctly. Now let's see it. Let's take a look at one after the fact, after the release. I still see the tag gateway stuff. I see the initial request. I see the publish. But there is something missing. Seems that the working is not there. So what is the worker, right? What happened? I don't remember approving or releasing something around the worker. Let me take a look at the PRs. Of course, he had to be Ken, right? Probably he was trying to save some cost, save some money. That's so cheap, man. And now we have this situation where we lost a lot of data just because he was trying to save some money. I knew that we never had to let him access to the repos, but what you can say is like managers will always try to find their way back to coding. Well, so yeah.
Act 4, there must be a better way.
So okay, now that we have fixed the problem, we identify the issue, and traces were really useful for that, but it was more like an after the fact, and the end-to-end test didn't help much. We have our Playwright tests, we have our setup, we have our CI/CD pipelines, but in the end, it was a backend problem, and there's nothing we can do. At least from the front end, everything looked correct, right? So what can we do? There has to be a better way. I mean, I remember something really weird, trace-based testing with a tool called Tracetest. I mean, that's even really hard to say, right? It's like how you say that trace-based testing with Tracetest. Well, I'll take a look to see what I can find. So I'm looking at their website, and I see that they have this really interesting tool that you can execute tests against the generated traces and the OpenTelemetry data. And the most exciting thing is that you can reuse what you already have. So in that case, you don't have to do anything else or do an extra work. If your instrumentation is there, if your telemetry data is there, then you're ready to go, right? This is really nice. But I mean, I'm mostly a front-end developer. I like doing stuff from the front end and having truly end-to-end tests. I'm not like this backend guys that just like to just be in a cave and drink soda and code all day. I like doing other stuff. I like just building UI. So can I ensure that from the front end? Actually, I found a really nice article from the founder. It talks about Playwright and Tracetest. And it's kind of weird because it talks about Lord of the Rings, but I get the point. I think there is something I can use with that. I see that they have this Tracetest Playwright integration, which is an NPM package that I can just download and install in my Playwright scripts. This seems to be pretty fun or really interesting. I can just try it. But I would like to see how hard it would be to implement. I mean, we have a full set of tests, Playwright trace scripts. I would like to see how hard would that be. Okay, by looking at the example that they have on that blog post, I see that you only need to do 3 steps, 3 small things. The first one is creating a Tracetest instance object after importing the package and installing it, which will include the API token to use the Tracetest platform. The second one is on the before all hook or before going to the website that you're testing, running the capture function, which is allows Tracetest to have the same trace for the entire user session. So all of the spans can be connected all the way from the front end. This is really interesting. And the last thing is the after add hook. That is the summary function that you can use to validate the trace-based tests work as well as the end-to-end or the front-end test with Playwright. So you can crash or fail your scripts based on the trace-based test failing. That's pretty neat and that's pretty cool. And you can also output the links to go to the UI and have a better visual of what happened, right? So, okay, it's time to start coding. So now I'm looking at my editor. I'm looking at my home spec script, and I'm going to follow in the steps that I saw in the tutorial. So the first thing is trace test. I create the instance. Also, I'm importing the package, of course. Then I'm creating the instance by passing the token. And then in the before each, after my type gateway setup for the API key, I can just do the capture function, which is going to enable trace test to have a single session. And then at the end, I'm going to be triggering the summary function. This is going to enable me to run this into a CI/CD pipelines and break everything if the trace test fail. And the really nice thing is that my scripts are just the same. I can keep the same test, the same information, the same steps. Nothing around that needs to change, right? And if you're using VS Code, I can just click the run button over here and it will immediately trigger the test. So, I mean, but how does that look in the Tracetest UI? Okay, so this is a trace. This is one of my tests that imports a Pokemon. And I can see the full trace, which is really nice. I can see everything that happened in the front end. I can see the clicks of the user. I can even see the fetch requests that were triggered by the front end, like the import Pokemon, which is really nice. So and this is all auto-instrumented by the OpenTelemetry libraries. And more awesome is that I can see the type gateway stuff also through this. I can see how the authentication of the key happens, or if the key is expired, or even the access. So I can do a lot of stuff with that. It will be really, really, really useful. And outside of that, I can also see the backend requests from the Node.js API happening. I can see the front-facing services being triggered, even the gateway request to the Node.js service. I can see the validation of requests. And finally, the worker, right? The most important piece of the software that imports the Pokemon, it's over here. And the next thing for me that is really nice is I can add test specs and assertions over this. So I can say things like break the test if Ken deletes the worker process again. So, and it's really easy because I can just click this button and the span that I want to check, I add a test spec. It will be automatically selected for me. And I can say, hey, I want the span count to be at least 1. So I'm always sure that this will pass. And I can name it the way I want it to. In this case, please can stop breaking our stuff. And I can save it. So immediately show the response and the results for the checks. And I can even go beyond that. I could have some other assertions to validate that all of my database spans are fast. And this will be nice because then if there is a new database span across the entire trace, I can just validate it with a single assertion that says, please, all of the database needs to be running in less time of 100 milliseconds. Nice. So this is really good. But I mean, this is a happy path, right? Everyone can test a happy path. There's not like any weird stuff or anything happening. How am I sure that this is going to work in a real scenario? So what I can do is I can just go to the Docker compose where I'm running my entire system and say, I don't want this worker anymore. It's just like Ken, right? Just killing the worker. That's just easy. Less money. So, and now I can see what would happen. So if in the case that the worker process doesn't exist in a trace like this, where we can see the rest of the stuff, the same clicks, the same requests, the same amount of spans for the type gateway section, but there's no worker. So this immediately will say, hey, the trace is breaking, and I can break the entire Playwright script based on this problem. So this is really useful, and I can just continue use this for my entire testing process. So never again. I will never have this problem. the most interesting thing is that if I have a CI/CD process, I can continuously be using that with the same Playwright setup and Playwright platform. I can see even the links of the output on my CI/CD, so I can follow those links to the UI, and I can even share those links with my team, so everyone can take a look and see what broke. And I can also set up alerts or things like that to my Slack channels to validate that the trace tests are also working as expected. So this is really nice, really neat. And this really helped me with breaking the chain of blame, because I'm not just pushing the blame to the next person, to the backend guys, and the backend guys to the infrastructure guys. It's just I can visually see from the front end, from the trace, what happened. And when my interaction with Playwright, I can just stop it right there and make sure that this will never happen again. So yeah, I'm really happy. And also we can make sure that Ken doesn't break it. But I mean, at least we also have a problem that he could delete the repo, and then we are back in the same step, right? But yeah, that's another topic.
Act 5. You know, when you do a lot of work, and Oscar, this is some great work, and you always expect to get recognition and reward. So let's cover that. Look, I got an email from the big boss. I won top manager contest of Q1. It looks like he's really impressed by this work I did. You know, I saw the observability data. I thought, couldn't we use that in tests? And then I got my team to do a little bit of work. And it looks like it's, you know, once I had that idea, I shared my idea with all the other managers, and it sounds like they're implementing it. Let's see, let's go to the next screen. Yeah, so, you know, what they're finding is their tests actually ensure the full flow. End-to-end test is actually an end-to-end test. And they're finding they get a reduced MTTR for test failures. MTTR.
What is that, Ken?
Must make time for golf. No, that's not it. Anyway, it sounds like that MTTR thing's better, whatever it is. Observability is being adopted by devs and QA now, not just SREs. Okay, well, that's good, because I'd heard a lot of complaining about adding observability to the code, and they didn't get any real value out of it. So I guess it's good they see value now. And less finger pointing. I'm fine with the fingers pointing as long as they're pointing some other way other than me. Next screen. Oh, what a nice line from my big boss. In short, due to my vision and amazing insight, the entire company is thinking observability first and ending the chain of blame. You know, observability first. That has a good ring to it. I think I'm going to say I came up with that first. The end. Next slide. Very good. Okay, so we're going to do a epilogue and QA, and I'm going to take off my tie.
Nice. So congratulations on the talk. Like, I think everybody's clapping. You deserve the award of the most entertaining talk. And many people were saying in comments how relatable it is. So good job at playing that that horrible boss, Ken. We added a command so for people that were joining to not be afraid to understand that this was a role play, to not confuse them.
Oscar might tell you I played the role a little too easily, so
that's
the desire to code is strong. So
we had a planning session before this. It was the same.
Exactly. So we wanted to share a resource. So we said at the beginning of this that all the stuff Oscar was showing, the Jaeger, you can see all these traces in Jaeger. You can fire off the test. It's got the Playwright test. It's got the full Pokemon demo. All that is available. It's got the type gateway embedded in it. All that's available in an easy to download repo. Yeah, and I set up the repo. No, it was actually Oscar did all the work. Set up the repo. And he did all the documentation, and it's really awesome. So that's available, and you can download it and grab it. And that's
just share the link in the chat, so you can also directly click on it now from the chat. And I'm going to share a couple of. So please keep the question going. If you have any question on Trace-based testing. So if you have any question, otherwise I have a lot. And also I want to share something as I told you at Tech, we're using it. So every time we make changes to our OpenTelemetry test, to our OpenTelemetry instrumentation, we use Tracetest to test it. Thomas, one of our developers, wrote a great blog post about it. So I've also added a link there. Tracetest, I think it's important to say, is both an open source project and has a commercial version. Maybe Ken, you want to say a couple of words on both options?
Sure. So you've got your option. The open source version is for running locally. It's a single instance, where the commercial version, you can have multiple environments. You can have full, rights. You can define people as engineers. It has the concept of authentication and some more advanced features. So
nice. So people can start playing with the open source, can fit their needs, and then learn about it. I really love the user interface. I think it's really great. In the example, you were using Playwright. Do you support also other integration with other tools?
Yes.
Yep.
So last year we started our kind of process of moving to truly through end-to-end tests. And actually the first integration that we worked with was for Cypress. So we have Cypress and Playwright today to integrate end-to-end frameworks like this. And yeah, we also have, if you go to the documentation website or on the Tracetest UI and Tracetest.io, you can find an example, and there we also have a blog post and a video about Cypress too.
And also maybe K6.
Yep.
Do you have
So we have
for K6
full support for K6. What's kind of cool about it, same kind of thing. If you have a large complex system with microservices and you're doing load testing against it, the API may be working great and handle the load, putting messages out on message queue, but then you have other processes behind it that cannot handle the load. A lot of times a black box test is not going to show you the problems. So with the trace test and relying on the full trace to be able to inspect the process and set assertions against it, you can really see what's going on.
Yeah, I can imagine like in API space, things like, there is sometimes complex authentication flow where you go through off and then back and forth, and then there's a lot that can go wrong. And this could be a very, very good example of with GraphQL. GraphQL very often return 200. So that's something that Agatha is going to show in a talk next. But I can imagine that's really useful, because then you can report things in the trace on the GraphQL side and then really catch it on the testing side. But the traces need to be stored somewhere, right? So you're leveraging, do you integrate with some observability backend? How does that integration work? So if I'm already using an observability vendor, how can you use trace test with that?
Yep. So we work with, I think it's
do you want to share your screen?
Yeah. Or you can share it if you go to the integrations, Tracetest.io, and go to integrations. We have, I think it's like 12 or 14. So anything that works with OpenTelemetry and OpenTelemetry Collector, we work with. So all of those. And then go under product and integrations. And if you scroll through here, we've got integrations. Some of our integrations are direct, like AWS X-Ray. You go to the configuration screen, you enter like API key and a couple other things. You can test your connection. And once that's done, Tracetest is ready to run. So, and then some of them, like, for example, Datadog, you need to be sending data. They don't have an API that we can reach out to. So if you're using the OpenTelemetry Collector with Datadog, you just define a second pipeline and you say, keep sending everything to Datadog and send the Tracetest tests to Tracetest. And what trace state? I think we use trace state for that.
Yes, yeah, we use a trace state to can understand which traces are for tests and which others we can ignore.
Yeah, so there's a whole list of the vendors we support here, but it's pretty extensive.
Yeah.
And of course, when you start with Tracetest, you need to have something that is instrumented, right? So there are approach like maybe the teams are starting with it, and it's a good start to bring it along. There's always auto instrumentation, like we have learned in some of the session earlier. or you can use some of component like Tag Gateway that's send the traces. So you have the start, but then you need to walk you around all the services to get more and more of the data to make your test more useful. But I think one great advantage is that you have the same language between production and testing. And that's what probably make it easier for user to adopt. Maybe Ken or Oscar, do you want to tell us about some of the integration use case of your user, some of the success story?
Yes. So yeah, as you said, it all depends on what your team is using and your company is using. We have had use cases for teams that are fully serverless. This means that they don't use any type of Kubernetes or like sidecars or ECS. They use fully like Lambda functions and using software as a service to support most of the infrastructure. So in this case, what we have done for those teams is enabling them with our Tracetest cloud agents to support also a way for you to not having to install something, but having a straight path of using the cloud power, the cloud native applications to kind of have the full Tracetest kind of integrated with their systems. And then there's other things that are more like Kubernetes based or ECS based, which is we also support these agents or these different ways. But in the end, it's just the most generic answer of the tech industry is it depends, right? It depends on what you need, and it depends on what you already have and what you use for your distributed service. And one thing about Tracetest is that we just look for the trace. If there is a trace somewhere that we can grab it, it could be from a data source, from a tracing backend, or directly from an OpenTelemetry collector. That's enough for traces to work. So yeah, that's kind of what pretty much the answer is.
I think and customers we've seen it be particularly useful at are ones with a lot of microservices, a lot of complexity. Those are, by the nature of those problem sets, they're also customers that have gone down the journey of implementing OpenTelemetry. They needed it. They couldn't figure out what was going on in production, so they've implemented it. And then they've got all these paths through their software, and they need to test them. And one customer we've got, he said it was complex enough. He had to have a senior engineer building end-to-end tests. They were taking 10 to 12 hours each. And he had hundreds of these scenarios he needed to test across to make sure the software worked. And with Tracetest, he said a business analyst is able to produce a test in 20 minutes. So he can actually cover those 100 tests. So
that's very impressive. Yeah, so let us know if there's any question. I think people just want to get it tried. Great way to involve dev teams on monitoring side. Yeah, it's also, I personally think it's really cool for feedback loops. And actually, I was at FOSDEM with Adnan, who was of Tracetest. He's in Dubai right now on holiday. So that's why he lets other work now. And that's why I know that Ken is not that kind of boss, because
he's a true manager. Adnan is a true manager. He's just like on vacation.
So I want to share the talk. It's here, and we did a talk also on increasing the feedback loop, also on an API ops pipeline, so adding a bit more of API world to that with GitOps, Argo CD, and then Tracetest in testing. So that's also a really, really cool use case. And yeah, any last word, Ken, Oscar, that you want to tell the people about observability in the API space, or in general, bringing it more into the pre-production side?
Yeah, just to talk about Alan's comment about great way to involve dev teams. It is, once the dev teams start writing tests with Tracetest, you're going to find that they put better data into their instrumentation because they need it in order to build a test. And then when you're in production at 2 a.m. trying to troubleshoot, you've got better data in your trace, so you can fix things quicker. And there's kind of a cycle that starts. They talk about observability driven development, and we think we're the way to enable that journey or help on the journey. So,
and last thing for me is, you want to reach out to us, there's our link to our Tracetest community on Slack. You can reach out to anyone from the team, and by just going to that link, or visit our documentation website or the main website Tracetest.io. And yeah, thank you for watching and being here.
Thank you for the most entertaining session and interesting at the same time. So really well done for keeping the audience engaged. They really loved it, judging by the comments. Thank you so much, Ken and Oscar. And we'll see everybody in the next session. Drink something, get a bit outside, and we'll see you soon. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you.